Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the MHGG Guys Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Wes.
AKA?
Not Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff, still out of commission. We're hoping to have him back next week for episode 130, some top 10 list action and things like that. But for now, you'll just have to do with the dulcet tones of Wes.
All right.
This week, we are going to be doing a discussion episode. It's going to be like all of our discussion episodes, a little bit kind of freeform and kind of see where we go. We have a loose framework of ideas that we want to talk about for this one, as we kind of always do, and then we just go from there. This one is one that's kind of been brewing for me for a little while. I've wanted to do it for a few weeks, and it's just been trying to find a good central thesis, I guess, like some kind of central theme to wrap this conversation around. And I think what we've kind of settled on is board game publishing trends is what we're going to call this discussion. But it's going to touch on a few different things, and depending on how the conversation goes and how long it goes, the third act might go way into left field. We'll see.
It's going to become a murder mystery.
Exactly. There's a gun on the wall right now. It might belong to some Russian guy named Chekhov. Don't pay any attention to it. It's not going to be important. Anyway, the thing that really started the idea for this discussion for me personally, and this started a while ago, and I almost made my first ever MyHighGameGuys.com blog post, and then I didn't because I had Resident Evil 2 coming. And actually back then I think was when I was really into Red Dead. It's been coming for a few weeks. So a while back, just for some background to what we're going to be talking about here and kind of what I'm going to use to form the basis of this, there are 3 blog posts that came out from 3 different people that I am mainly all kind of came out similar time frames to each other that we're going to use for the 3 steps of this conversation. The third one, like I said, if we get there. The first one comes from Ignacy Trevicek, owner of Portal Games, game designer. Everybody should basically know who Ignacy is. And he did a blog post over on BGG a while back talking about how board gaming has entered the one-print era. And it was a big, long post. Actually, not that long. But it was a post where he basically was talking about how there was some news that came from a publisher in Poland announcing a list of games they wouldn't be reprinting, and going through some of those on there. And he was talking to a friend about how one of the games he considers one of the 5 best games he's ever played was on that list of games that they will never reprint again. And his friend hadn't even heard of the game. And so then he goes on to lament the state of the industry, where basically now you get your first printing, and then by the time you could order a second printing, have it done and have it out, the hype train has moved on and everybody's already forgot about the other game, and it's just lost forever.
That game was Lewis and Clark, just as an FYI,
yes.
too.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that game?
Yeah. How have you not heard of Lewis and Clark? Jeez.
I don't know how anybody's not heard of it. But yeah, and he laments that one of the best Euro games ever, covered with the sands of time. And he talks about how he feels like games that they put out 5 years ago are still good and still deserve to be played and everything, but people just don't care. And he does, at the end, very clearly state that he's not saying it needs a cure. He's not even saying it's sick. He's just saying that, this is something I'm seeing, and I think it's something to be aware of. So that's the first article that we're going to talk about. Then, following up very shortly after that, not necessarily as a response to that, Jamie Stegmaier does a ton of vlogs and blog posts and all the time. I don't know how Jamie Stegmaier has any free time, considering how
he does it every day. So
he does, blog posts, vlogs, just constantly. He's publishing games. He's, running a company. I don't know where this guy finds the time. But he's basically lamenting a little bit from a just publisher to distributors and retailers, some of the struggles that he's seeing with publishing games and getting out there, namely that it is so hard to forecast hype. Stonemaier famously abandoned Kickstarter a while back, and abandoned's not really the right word. They stopped using Kickstarter for a variety of reasons. Yeah. But I mean, abandonment feels like a little bit more harsher. It's a very screw you. And I don't think it was that. It was more like hey, we've had our fun with you. We've, had a lot of success. We're going a different direction now. I don't know. And he talks about this namely in relation to their most recent game, Wingspan, and how he's already ordered a third printing of this one. And they're having trouble keeping it in stock. And like retailers and distributors are pissed at him, like, dude, where are more copies? Like, people want this game. We don't have enough copies. And he's like, I didn't know it'd be this popular. It's a game about birds. And so basically when I saw Jamie's, I saw Ignacie's, and then a couple days later I saw Jamie's, completely unrelated to one another. And it struck me how completely different problems these two publishers are having with games, and how they're seeing two completely different sides of hype and how it's affecting their business. From Ignacie's perspective, he's saying hype is causing people to forget about old games, so they're not getting reprinting, they're not getting remade, they're not continuing. And then Jamie is saying, holy shit, I'm already on my third print run, and the second print run hasn't even released yet. Like, and I remember famously, Stephen Monacore from Stronghold was having similar issues with Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars, he's ordered like 8 printings of.
Yeah.
If not more. And he talked about a long time ago about there's always a risk. Like, yes, it's hype and it's sold out, and you order another printing and that one sells out. And then you order another one and order one until at some point the demand's going to get met. And so you order a printing and that last printing covered demand, and then you order a new printing and those just sit in warehouses. And like that's a risk as a publisher that you chase this, like, holy shit, they want my game, they want my game, they want my game. Oh, they all have my game, and now I've got a warehouse full of it. So those are going to be the main two. And then one came out later that referenced back to both of those, and that was an article that talked about Marie Kondo, and the
tidying up thing.
Yeah.
The joy and games bring you joy and stuff like that. Or whatever it is. I think it was called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo.
Yeah, and she's got like a method
that's
like the Kondo method or something that's like, basically touching everything and like, does this bring me joy? And if not, get rid of it. And that's kind of become a big thing. And so this references that in relation to board games and hype and massive collections and longevity of board games and all of that. And if we get to that, disposable gaming culture is the name of that blog post. If we get to that, we'll talk about it. We might not quite make it to that point, depending on how the first part of this discussion goes. But that's a basic roadmap for what I want to talk about in this episode. And just kind of see what, you two guys' thoughts on that are. I'll probably do a little bit of rambling and ranting because I've got rambles and rants that I've been building up for like months, and I still want to ramble and rant about them. So we'll see how it all goes. So let's dive into this here. Let's jump back to that first point, the Ignacy one, where he's lamenting a little bit the state of the industry. He says, like, his line here where he talked about that conversation and the person never having heard of Lewis and Clark, and that it was released 5 years ago in board games. That's a decade, he says.
Yes, would say,
And then the state of the industry we live in today, in general, publishers don't announce it in such an open way. But I guess you already figured it out. Publishers don't do reprints. We live in a one-print era, print and forget. I had this devastating conversation in 2017 when I was stuck in the airport. And he goes on about there. And he talks about that. I'll mention no names and titles here. The game had an epic opening. It got great hype. They had a hit. Immediately, they decided to do a reprint. It's 8 weeks to reprint a game. It is 8 weeks to ship it from China, and then 2 to 4 weeks to put it back into distribution. When the reprint arrived, nobody was interested in the game anymore. Eyeballs and attention moved to the new shiny, and the company, after great success with the release of the game, ended up with a warehouse full of reprints that nobody wanted and lost a bunch of money. I don't know who that might have been. I'm not going to speculate.
It's probably a very common story.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. There were, something like 7,000 games released in 2018. Like, there was a ridiculously high number.
And I only played 6,000 of them.
I know. Yeah. You didn't play the 1,000 bad ones, so you're fine there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Most of those are going to be shit games.
100%
mediocre,
shit,
yeah.
And that's one of the things, like, and that's where part of my initial reaction to this, to this article from, especially when I then saw the follow-up from Jamie, I read the Ignacy post, a few weeks ago, and immediately I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I just heard a year ago Stephen Monacore complaining about how he could not order enough. Like, he constantly was ordering new runs. And there might be a little bit of a difference there because he doesn't have that extra lag time of shipping from China, because Stronghold does produce here in the U.S., or at least they did with Terraforming Mars. I don't know if they do with all their games, but they, it's produced right in Indiana. And so that cuts out some of that transit time, but you're still looking at a portion of time for a reprint to get made and then get distributed to shelves where it can sell. And I could see how like maybe a game that gets a big flash of hype, because I do think, especially with Kickstarter, games get a lot of hype that maybe don't deserve hype. Like something about them catches the industry's eye. They get a rave review from some YouTube channel or podcast or something.
Right. Or they hire the right marketing firm that just knows all the tricks.
Yeah. They do something like Mechs vs. Minions did, where they send out a bunch of copies, have a big embargo, and then everybody drops their reviews on the same day, and they make it an event, which immediately like marks it in people's minds. So there might be things like that really generate some hype, where then after a little bit of time, once people have gotten their hands on it, it doesn't stay as fresh. The actual gamers aren't talking about it, because I think that's where a lot of that hype, the long-term hype that like Terraforming Mars is succeeding from, that Wingspan might succeed from, comes from gamers. Like it doesn't come from us podcasters talking about a game. Even when like us, when we review Kalis, that another show sent us, because they wanted to hear us like our thoughts on it. When we review Kalis, like nobody's going to make a run on Kalis. I mean, for one, nobody's going to make a run on any game we review here, because we don't have that kind of reach.
And also, all of your opinions are wrong.
Also, that's a problem too.
Well, as long as everybody knows our opinions are wrong, whatever we feel, they just do the opposite.
The problem is you can never tell which of you guys is the wrong one.
Oh, hey, you're one of us. You said all of us are wrong.
Whoa. Careful, you're revealing the secret success of the show, is that 2/3 of the podcast is always wrong, and it's just which one is it?
The secret is I'm always wrong.
So I can see where some games might get hype and then kind of fade off and peter off, and that happens. Like Mechs vs. Minions is one that there was a crazy amount of hype when it first came out, because all of those dropped at the same time, and the publisher there, Epic Games?
Riot Games. Epic does Fortnite.
Yeah. They'd never really entered the board gaming side of things. They did, and granted, they did a lot of other things right besides just the marketing side of things. Like their component quality was through the fucking roof.
That's because they have the money to be able to order, like, economies of scale. Just as a first printing, do 30,000 units, and they make more money than the entire board gaming industry. So they were able to. They were fine if they just broke even. They weren't doing it. It was a project of love. It wasn't. They weren't trying to enter into the board gaming industry. It was a one-off for them.
And they had a built-in non-board gamer audience that if it didn't do well with gamers, at least they could still sell to their video gamers.
Yeah.
And I think that one is on its 3rd or 4th wave of printing now.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. So even though the hype of it, like the initial hype, obviously no one is as super excited as it was when it all first came out. I still constantly see people talking. Like I still see people talking about it. And
it does still come up fairly often.
Yes,
it hasn't completely died away, but like I feel like it went down quite a bit. Whereas like I see shit about Terraforming Mars like near daily still.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Terraforming Mars. I'm frank, and some of that also helps. They clearly had a release plan for expansions, which keeps it fresh in people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So Stronghold's done a lot of other things right in that side of things to keep Terraforming Mars in the conversation and fresh.
Right.
And as much as some people hate.
Well, and I think part of that is just how hard it was to get it at the beginning. And
oh, man, yeah. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
And
yeah.
False scarcity can be the best, being able to play the market in that regard as well. So maybe the demand is there and the supply isn't, or maybe the supply is there and the demand isn't. Which would you rather have? You would much rather not have the supply, knowing that the demand is there, that if you could just get the supply out, as opposed to having them sitting in your warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I think any publisher would happily choose that.
No.
But I think you also run a risk. And I think this is, if you regularly have a reputation for not ever making enough copies of your games, then it might make some stores like less I can order 10 copies, but I'm only going to get 2. That's not worth it for me. Because retailers, they're trying to forecast those kinds of things. A lot of retailers offer like pre-orders for their customers, especially brick and mortar. You know, they got to have every incentive to get people to come in and not order on CSI or Amazon or, you know, whatever online store. You know, and so if they're offering pre-orders for a game that's coming out that they expect to be hot and they order 20 copies and then they only get shipped 4, they're not going to be happy about that. You know,
especially when they sell all 4 of them within 5 minutes of it sitting on the shelf.
When Gloomhaven sold, like when they first came to retail, you know, they had a CSI and they were only able to fulfill 7 or 8% of the pre-orders they received. Because I remember, like, Jeff was one of the 8% that actually got his. But stores sometimes just, like, they will just do crazy pre-orders, and then, like you said, once, you know, it's like, oh, we can actually only fulfill this amount of them because it's going to so many different places.
Right.
That it's hard. And so that's where
but at the same time, isn't that the point of the pre-order and the Kickstarter model in general, is to know what your demand is before you print?
No, I understand that. No, what I was saying was, like, for that, it was just, like, those weren't, like, retailers buying it, like, doing the retail pledges or anything. It was just, like, they just printed an amount to just give to retailers, and they...
Over what the Kickstarter... Like, they figured, we have all these... We'll make copies for all the Kickstarter backers, and then we'll figure some people will want this after the fact.
Yeah.
So we'll make this many more to send to retailers. And that was only enough to fill, like, 8% of the continuing demand.
Yeah. But that's where I think, like, you know, sort of 2 things are showing up now. Is that, one, I feel that, you know, obviously, if you remember what Shut Up and Sit Down's thing, talking about, like, how board games are now, like, in a golden era of stuff. I think now it's starting to, it's, when I saw this complaint, I was just like, or, you know, the first post, the first thing I thought was, well, that just, like, is also what is happening around all entertainment, is that everything is becoming super, like, everything is hype and then immediately move on to the next thing, because there's so many things being released. There's so many TV shows, there's so many movies, there's so many video games, there's so many board games coming out, that it's all about, you know, what's happening right now? Oh, well, what's happening? Okay, I've experienced it. Now what's next? And then what's next and what's next? So it felt, I don't know. I felt like they were trying to say that it was something unique to the board gaming industry.
I don't think it is.
Okay, no, it's not. And then also I think that's where...
But it's something that the board game industry has been experiencing for a short amount of time that makes it feel unique, whereas a lot of other industries have been doing that literally every year for the past 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, Hollywood, if you look at, like, theatrical releases, it's all about opening weekend. Nobody gives a shit about third and fourth weekend until some movie, like, just is number 1 for, like, 5 weeks, and people are like, holy shit, what happened here?
But you want to see opening release, and then you want to see international release.
Yeah.
And then that's, like, the 2 main metrics.
Yeah. And beyond that...
But that's regular, everyday. The market in cinema is what's opening this weekend.
Yeah.
Whereas that hasn't been the case in board gaming until the past 10 years.
Yes.
Well, and I think so. Some of the issues, and I think movies aren't a great comparison point.
No.
Because movies, although a lot of times people consume movies multiple times, movies are generally meant to be a one-off experience. Like, the number of times somebody goes to, especially, like, the movie theater.
But I mean, you could look at the home movie release as the, you know, the reprint, for example.
All I was saying is, I mean, really what I'm trying to say is that it's following the same trend that all the other things do of being disposable. It's just that board games aren't inherently disposable or, like, consumable like movies, like a lot of video games, or, you know, a decent amount of video games, TV shows and stuff. It tends to be so, you know, that you do it and then you go on the next thing, and that's happening now in the board gaming industry. It's just that because, you know, it's we've had all these things of, like, oh, you know, I play my game a couple times and then we go on to the new thing.
Yeah.
And it feels like a waste for people because it's like, oh, I have this thing that I could be playing, but I'm not. It's just, you know, taking space.
I mean, that's why I don't buy new games. I never do Kickstarters.
Right.
I never buy the next hotness because I know if I buy it, that's just going to be wasted money sitting on my shelf because I'll play it once.
I feel personally attacked.
I'm sorry. I mean,
No,
that's my business practice. You know, I mean, I wait. I play games 3, 4, 5 times until I know that I like them, and then I buy a copy for myself.
Unless it's Arkham Horror.
Yeah, that one I got right out of the gate. Yeah.
But you knew you were going to get it. So, yeah.
But also, yeah, I mean, and that goes to a point that I want to make later, so I'll just wait for that.
Which this is getting to what I wanted to talk about more in the third act. Which I mean, I'm tempted to just be like, fuck it, we've gotten to the part I want to talk about.
Go for it.
Just skip. But one last thing for me on the one print error that I want to talk about. So like we just in our news on Wednesday, we talked about 4 different companies, 4 different games, Splatter with Roads and Boats, and more Food Chain stuff, which Food Chain's been out for like 6 years now.
Yeah, which I have stuff I want to say about that that pertains to this conversation.
Castles of Burgundy. And there were 2 more that I'm already drawing a blank on, even though we just talked about them 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Portal?
Portal Games, a bunch of their new releases, which it's funny that this is Ignacie's blog post talking about this, and he just announced a whole shit ton of new Imperial Settler stuff.
Right.
Like, which granted, those aren't necessarily reprints of Imperial Settlers.
Yeah.
They're expansions and standalones just carrying
But that's
the
a
same
way
name.
to get around that.
Exactly.
You make your original game hyped again
Yeah.
by having the new thing for it.
Yeah, because one of those was a big box edition that's, here's this game with all of its stuff, all of its expansions in one nice, easy package for you to get now.
And as a game designer and developer and publisher, I don't have to spend all of that time and money developing a whole new game when I can stick with IP that I already have.
Yeah. Which, and I know I've seen other things where Ignacie's talked about that they have been chasing success from, like Robinson Crusoe, which is another one they've reprinted like 5 times now.
Probably.
Like, they have editions.
They have it's the
4th edition?
Third.
It's only 3rd edition.
Yeah. But they've had reprintings of it, obviously, but yeah.
But it's the 3rd edition that's gone through major revisions and changes. But Robinson Crusoe and Imperial Settlers are the 2 that I remember hearing him talk about, that they kind of chased the success of those 2 games for a while. And they've had a little bit of a harder time keeping up with it. Or trying to replicate that success.
Yeah.
Right.
So clearly we're not like, publishers aren't just saying we'll never reprint games.
No.
They might be being more selective. They might be waiting for anniversaries and things.
Yeah. Well, and I think something I was trying to tie with the movies too is that because there's so many games coming out now that it's like movies. Okay, so in movies now, it seems like you either have the blockbusters or you have sort of like the more low budget ones.
The niche art film.
The middle range ones sort of fell out because they weren't as because there's so movies, people either went for something more introspective or something bombastic.
Right.
And so it seems like with games now, mediocre games can't really succeed anymore like they possibly could when there are only like a couple hundred games released. So you have the big game, the big bombastic games, and then you have the other ones that are just more evergreen, the ones that are just always like Ticket to Ride or Castle, like some of the small, like they're like, no, they're never like, oh, that's amazing, but it's just always not in production or just, like that. So I feel like it becomes a one print era for a lot of games that are just like, don't make a lasting imprint for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I would argue, I think that's a good thing. In an era when there's 5,000 board games released in a year, mediocre games should fail. Mediocre games should not make money.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, I want there to be, like, I would love, well, and I say that. That's a bad way to phrase it.
It is a bad way, because then, like, I feel like anybody, like, if mediocre games fail, like it's someone's first design or whatever, then they don't have a chance to be like, oh, I made it, it went okay, and then like they can learn that if it's a failure from then, it's like, oh,
Yeah, and and this is another area where like there's so much wrong in Hollywood about how they make decisions about what movies get made and things and pitching. Like I don't ever want us to end up with board gaming getting close to doing what Hollywood does. But I like the idea that there's big blockbusters that are the hype games that everybody hears about and everybody's all ooh shiny. That there's like the niche classics that like the, uppity assholes like myself can get excited about.
Exactly.
And then stick our nose up at everything else that, the masses like.
So
but then there's like
your Splotters and your 18xx's that are like, they're never going to go super mainstream, but they aren't designed.
no. And
they
they're
are
not
designed
trying
to be.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And they can get away with those small
Yeah.
print runs because they're not going to sell out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then a third category that I don't think you mentioned, if you did, it was during a brief period where I wasn't paying attention. B movies, like movies that they know are shitty, but they know that some people will watch a movie because a shitty movie can be entertaining.
Right.
Like, and that's one of the things.
Because it's shitty.
Yeah, and I don't think board games will ever get to where, like, I mean, there are some people who will, like, ironically play a shitty game because it's shitty and because that's like a hipster thing.
I've totally like tried to seriously play Candyland before with adults, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't pay for it or anything like that.
Right.
It was just available, and we're like, we got nothing better to do. Let's fucking be serious about Candyland.
Yeah. Or like, I hear people, and I've said this, Monopoly's not that bad if you play by the actual rules.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that bad, but it's still not good.
And yet there's 1,000 different versions of it, and it sells
Yeah.
Because it's
gangbusters.
Because it's a known.
It's a known.
Right.
Whenever someone says board games, oh, you mean like Monopoly and Risk?
Yeah, it's got
No,
that
but
cultural
yeah.
backing.
Exactly.
Well,
Here in America,
it's not
I don't know if
as
it's
much
nearly as
cultural
popular.
backing as it is the industry backing, the corporate backing.
Well, the
The
big
fact
chains.
that it has the big chains selling it and the big company building it. I mean, that's why
Yeah, I mean-
Fantasy Flight is as successful as they are at predicting their sales, is because they're a big company that's been in the game for decades.
Yeah. And same thing, like, as Asmodee gets bigger and buys more and more, like,
Right,
they're able to
exactly.
identify, like, this is a valuable thing for us to own because we can use it.
Which is something that I wanted to get to eventually, was that, it's been like this in every other industry for so long that they've been able to learn and adapt to that. And it's just so, board gaming as a mainstream industry is still so young that it's made up of hundreds or more, thousands of small companies doing small things.
Well, and people doing it part-time.
With no institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
Without those big companies like the MGM or whatever that can say, hey, we've been making movies for 100 years. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
That kind of what's new, what's going now is going to continue or being unable to predict your demand or your supply chain or whatever is going to continue until companies start to amalgamate into larger sections. And that's going to be a growing pains process for the next 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. Which I mean, and this is a side conversation that I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
But this 100% relates to when people complain about the state of reviewing in board games and how so many, like, the big name reviewers are tied so closely to the publishing and design side of things. And it's because it is such a small, like you said, young mainstream. I don't think you could hardly even call board games mainstream. Like, they're starting to vaguely scratch at the mainstream.
Right.
Like,
I mean, mainstream for a niche hobby.
yeah.
Right.
But we're going through these growing pains. Like, board gaming has exploded in the last 5 years. The number of board gaming podcasts is, like, just skyrocketing. There's always some new board gaming podcast. Like, we're not a big podcast. We don't have a huge reach. We don't have a ton of downloads, like, compared to, like, some of the bigger names. Like, I talked to Edward, like, back when he lived in Colorado, and we talk about, like, download. Yeah, well, he would talk about download numbers, and I just sit there and be like, oh, fuck, I am nowhere near big.
Of course, yeah.
But even me, like, I noticed, like, on our Twitter, like, constantly, like, some new starting out board game podcast follows us. And it's like, click over and, like, Twitter with, like, 10 tweets. And, like, and I try to do a good job of following back because I've been in their shoes. I've been the new guy who's jumped into an already saturated market.
No,
and tried to do something.
You have to
fucking
immediately
stupid.
stomp them down. You can't have any more competition. Now that we're
and there's a lot of great shows, like good shows are coming out and stuff, but we haven't reached a point where a lot of them are, like, able to make it independently, like, without publisher support.
Yeah.
Without, like, industry support. We haven't reached a point where the New York Times is going to pay to have a board game reviewer on their staff.
Well,
I mean, never mind
it's
that the entire
beyond
nature of newspapers and print and all of that
I would
is
say,
going
yeah,
to
board
change.
game reviews, like, evolved post any of that.
Yes.
So,
right.
yeah.
But I mean, BuzzFeed might. And
exactly.
they're a legitimate, as much as it pains me to say, a legitimate media organization now.
Yeah.
Journalists work there.
Well, I feel like I read somewhere there was like BuzzFeed and BuzzFeed News, and they were like two separate things or something.
Is that the
like
case?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And like BuzzFeed News is the one that like broke that story.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes. So BuzzFeed News might one day actually have
Right.
board game reviews.
But so far,
In a legitimate
very
sense.
few people are. I mean, like Popular Mechanics does a regular
Yes.
board game
Yeah.
article. You know, like I did a brief stint in my freelance, the year and a half there, where I was writing for Slant
Oh yeah, that's right. yeah.
and basically writing board game reviews, pretending to be organic content so they could build a base of organic content. So it's getting there, but we're not that
Right.
kind of an industry. And so same thing with it, all of those things are tied into the fact this is a very young industry. You know, it's
Yeah.
something that started as a hobby and is now becoming an industry,
And
and feeling that pain of switching from
Right.
hobbyists to actual business.
And the companies that are big now, that are good at doing the business of board games, not just the design of them, but the business of them, are your Fantasy Flight and your USAopoly or whatever, that have been in it since the 80s, since the 60s. You know, that these are big
Yeah.
companies that do have that institutional knowledge.
Yeah. So obviously Ignacy's on the one side, feeling like it's hurting reprints and like things like that, and it's all about the new hype. And this is still kind of moving in that same direction. Jamie's article. So the thing that stands out to me is when he was doing this, initially getting Wingspan together, his initial print run that he ordered was 10,000 copies. You know, we talked about how Riot was able to order, what was it, 30?
30, yeah.
Yeah, for their initial print run. Jamie, for a game he didn't think would be popular, is now ordering 10,000 units.
For his second printing.
No.
That was the first print.
Yeah, so,
And he thought he wasn't going to sell any,
yeah.
but he still ordered 10,000.
Well, so I don't know if he didn't think he would sell any.
Well, but he didn't think it was going to sell as well, but
He wasn't sure. He was trying to gauge. So
Right.
he
Because,
says,
yeah, go ahead.
let me just quote this little
Yes.
thing
Yeah,
here
go
from
for it.
his article. Last summer, before we started manufacturing Wingspan, I reached out to a few distributors to ask how many copies they thought we should make of a bird-themed medium-weight Euro game. Even though these distributors had absolutely no incentive to go low, remember, all the risk is on us at this point, they all said we should make 10,000 copies. So we did. I printed 10,000 copies of Wingspan, but I was still a little worried, so just in case, I made 5,000 sets of the non-printed components, eggs, tokens, plastic trays, etc., figuring that if the game was a hit, having those would speed up the reprint. If it was a flop, I had invested too much. As it turned out, when I saw the buzz around the game in early December, I immediately started the second print run. As retailers learned this week, the demand for Wingspan is way higher than 10,000. I've been hearing from retailers their distributors are only giving them 1 or 2 copies of the game, even though they have 50 pre-orders. And he talks about how he's already put in a third print run that won't, like, so the second one will deliver, like, be mid-March, I think,
And then April. Yeah.
So, like, it's not even that far out that second and third printings of Wingspan are going to
Right.
be hitting, but it's, like, blowing up right now. And his article, and, like, these links will be in the show notes, because I think they do, and I don't want to go through all this, but he has, like, questions about, like, whose fault is it? Is it the distributors for this? Is it the retailers for that? Is it, you know, us as the publisher for not forecasting demand? And, like, you know, it's hard to assign even a remote amount of blame for these things because you can't know. You know,
unless
like,
you have that institutional knowledge from decades in the industry, which hasn't built up yet.
which is still a forecasting
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
thing that could be off.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. But again,
Yeah.
having big amalgamated companies allows you to absorb those sorts of ups and downs.
Yeah, and move them around and do other things with
Right.
the things that are left over.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you
what
can-
I'm saying is, board gaming publishers, if you hate how unpredictable the market is and that you can't predict it, just wait 30 years.
Yeah, better.
Jamie, just don't wait. Just don't publish any more
Yeah.
games for 30
Well,
more
no,
years.
no, keep publishing games for 30 years and then send all that knowledge back in time.
Oh, I mean,
You know what they should do? Send the knowledge on how to send stuff back in time.
So
so that we can start sending.
I've always said the reason I haven't invented a time machine is because I haven't come back to tell myself how to do it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, right now would be a great time for that, actually.
Nope.
Nope.
You still
Okay.
haven't figured it out.
Still haven't figured it out.
Or it's that Future West doesn't want present West to know that, because then Future West would be gone and be replaced by a different Future West.
Right. It's not that I haven't figured it out yet. It's that
You're hoarding the knowledge.
It's that I don't trust myself yet.
I mean, I get that. Like, I've always told myself that if I ever had a time machine, the first thing I would do is go 15 seconds back in time and stop myself from going in the time machine. So
That'd just be a mean prank to pull on yourself.
Yeah.
Jump out of a
Definitely.
time machine.
Definitely.
Don't do this.
I'd want to know what happens. That's why.
And what would happen is that you'd come back and tell yourself not to.
Yeah, and then what would happen with my other?
Well, but then wouldn't you just be like, I'm glad to see I did that joke the first time. Let me take this time machine to the future.
No, I'd be like, cool, destroy.
Anyway, we're not talking about time machines. We're talking about board game publishing. Very closely related.
Very
items.
closely related.
So speaking on hype, that's one thing where the lack, like, I think that's one of the reasons why more people are using Kickstarter too, as pre-order systems, is because then you don't have to gauge the hype.
Right.
They are, I know, because it's like, oh, look, these amount of people, want this thing, so then you can do it off of that. And then unfortunately, you have some of the things where there's too much hype on it, and like I have seen games where you're like, it's 20,000% overfunded, like what they were expecting, and then shit goes south because it was too much production. Like, too many people were interested in it at once, and so you weren't able to, like, oh, here's 1,000 copies of it. Oh, that game looks cool, and then it builds up that hype. Whereas here, everyone's like, oh, this looks cool. Let's do 20,000 copies that they weren't able to handle, and then it all sort of comes crumbling down.
Right.
Well, so
because I've seen that not in just board games too. I've seen it in a lot of like Kickstarters.
yeah,
Biggest ones, like there was a cooler that made like $20 million on Kickstarter that like they wasted all the money trying to.
well, I think to some extent, some of those are issues where like people who win the lottery that then tend to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Like you have money and you're like, I can just spend it on everything, and
Well,
then
yes. Well,
money it's still finite.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that like too much hype when you're not prepared for it can ruin you just as much as not enough hype when you build.
Which I don't use Kickstarter for a lot of non-board game things, so I don't know how common stretch goals are in non-board gaming Kickstarter. But I think that's something that really kills people.
Yes.
Who do like a medium run, like they set a goal of like 5,000. That's a realistic. Like, I'm not talking about CMON that sets a 5,000 or 10,000 goal that they know they're going to make $1 million fucking dollars.
It's like 250,000 or whatever.
Well, it is
still,
now,
but yeah,
I'm not talking about people who intentionally shoot low. Like I'm talking about people who are like, good God, I hope I hit this line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I will. I hope I will. And then they blow it out of the water, and then they're like, well, shit, we got to start throwing extras, and they start throwing extras. And there's some room to do some extras because once you start hitting bigger numbers, economy of scale kicks in and brings your costs way down. So you have a little bit of extra money to maybe upgrade components a little bit, to do something a little nicer. But I think people get carried away with that with stretch goals a lot, especially young companies, first-time publishers, first-time designers who don't have that background to know that there's a limit where you can start putting too much shit into a game and you will run the profits through the roof. Like, we talked to somebody who did a game recently, and like a very successful Kickstarter. And I don't want to give away too much information because I don't know if this should be public, but very successful Kickstarter, a game that we like, and they made $500 profit after it all was said and done. Now, I don't know if that was after they paid all of their employee wages, like the company's profit for the year was only $500, or if like after production, they only had $500, so everybody on that project worked for basically free. I'm not sure. I didn't ask because I didn't want to like accidentally poke a sore wound. But that was a first-time Kickstarter that blew up. And I think another issue is like it's tricky because on the one hand, like Jamie is a great resource for like he gives all kinds of advice for Kickstarters and pricing models and all of that, and people don't take advantage of it. Like it's out there. Like there's. You don't need to be the company with 50 years of institutional knowledge when there's plenty of other people who have done what you're trying to do and have succeeded, who are giving that knowledge away for free. Like,
and that's one thing to say for the board gaming industry. It's a very inclusive, collaborative industry that you don't see that in Hollywood or in whatever else. That there's so many corporate secrets that we're not going to let the competition get one up on us.
The only way there could be direct competition if it's like. You stole their game.
Which, I mean, there have been issues with.
You're not wrong.
There have been issues.
Yeah.
But not on the same level.
No.
What is it? Twin movies? Like twin games isn't a thing yet.
No.
You're not seeing Volcano and Dante's Peak released in the same year.
Well, even
kind of like
Dino
there was like
and
3 of
Dinosaur
those
Island,
Dino games, yeah.
but like when you played them, they were they felt
they're
pretty
different.
different.
Yeah.
So.
But you do see a lot of somebody will do one new interesting mechanic, and then 6 months later, everybody's releasing a game
Well,
with that
that's
mechanic.
because people like to chase
Oh, yeah.
whatever's popular. So
and things are inspiration. You play
things are
a game with a
inspiration.
cool
Yes.
new novel mechanic,
Yes.
and you're like, how could I do something different with this game?
Which is again another thing to the credit of board gaming as a hobby, as a art form, is that it's entirely collaborative and that you can't copyright the mechanics. It's
unless you're Magic,
right.
Jesus, right?
But that you're building on each other, and
Yeah.
you're saying, this is cool. How can I implement that in a new and interesting way?
Yeah.
Which is another reason to say that the new and interesting thing is what people are chasing and not the old standby, because it's been improved.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, let's just move on to that point. Like, I should have moved on to it like 15 minutes ago when we started talking about it like right away. Because it's one of the things that I really liked about the final article, the disposable gaming culture, because he talks about some stuff like that. Like, he talks about in it the idea for people like collectors and like that these games are like Dominion is such a like staple for deck builders. Like Dominion was the first deck builder.
Right, but I'll never buy another copy of it.
Right. And I don't know that anybody should. It launched a whole genre, but it's 10 years old. Like at this point, like
but there are definitely people that still think that it's the deck builder, but I think that's people. I don't know. Everybody has their own favorite game.
I mean, I still have a very strong fondness for Catan.
Yeah.
For Settlers. Like I really like it. But I can fully acknowledge that there is not a single thing that game does that is not done better in modern games.
Yep.
Like I don't agree with it as a intro game. I think that it's a game for people who have a fondness for it. It's a nostalgia game. Like a lot of my enjoyment from Catan is that it was one of the first games that brought me into the hobby. Like I can still kind of latch on to it. Some games that doesn't work for, like Munchkin was like my second game in the hobby, and Munchkin can go fuck itself. That's a whole nother. I'm not gonna shit on Munchkin a whole lot right now, but like looking at some other deck builders that have come along, like you have games sometimes like Clank or something that's like deck building's a part of the game. It's not a pure deck builder like Dominion is, but you can look at something like Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle or Star Realms or Hero Realms. Arctic Scavengers, if you want one that's more like
that. Arctic Scavengers would be the one I would say would be a direct.
Yeah,
because it's actually the same pile.
Yeah,
version,
it's a pile
right?
versus
it's
trench.
Not the trench.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people that don't like the trench because they feel it adds too much randomness on what cards come out. So
but I feel like Arctic Scavengers is the only thing that Dominion has on any of these games is that it's got 10 years worth of expansions and meta knowledge and like strategy and like all that deeper stuff, but that's something that's not going to apply to like 90% of people who fucking play Dominion.
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of people who play Dominion are going to be like, especially if they're playing other deck builders alongside of it. Like, yeah, fans of Dominion who've been playing Dominion for 10 years, you have every right to love Dominion and think Dominion's great. But that doesn't mean that somebody who's brand new to the hobby who plays
I would say
3 games and then plays Dominion, they're not going to go like, this game feels old. Like, I can watch Casablanca and appreciate that Casablanca is a great film and still be like, oh, I can see all the dating in this film. Like, from all of my modern film knowledge, I can go back and look at a movie like Casablanca and I can appreciate the good storytelling and all the things it does great and still think it's a great movie, but also realize that it's clearly a dated movie.
But at the same time, all of the movies that we have now wouldn't be where they are without being able to build off of Casablanca and imitate and create in a better way.
Right, which is a key part of every art and thing ever, even industry. Like, we didn't get to the moon by just inventing rockets out of thin air. They built on a bunch of other technology to
get
us.
Build it on the ground because
you
use the rockets to get into the thin air. That's where the space is.
Yeah, and you have to burn the thin air as the rocket fuel.
I hate all of you so much. But also, like, and as much as I will gladly accept claims of being elitist, because I am a little bit elitist sometimes with my board gaming tastes, I don't think that I'm certainly not elitist to the point where it's like, oh, if you don't watch the classics, you can't appreciate the new stuff. I don't feel that way about movies. I don't feel that way about music. I don't feel that way about video games. I don't feel that way about anything. Like, things are iterative. If you're playing the new stuff, you're getting a lot of, like, yeah, if you really get passionate about something, sure, dive in and find its roots. Understand where it came from and how it got to where it is. But I don't expect every random fan of it to do that. I don't think everybody needs to play Dominion, is what I'm saying. Or Catan, or Castles of Burgundy, or whatever the hell else.
I want to play the art house board game that is just like the stupid.
It wants you to hate it.
Yeah, that it wants you to hate it, but that like it only exists to like be an homage to older games. Like
there's got to be something.
Well, there's got to be, but like how films do that, like the really artsy films that are just like, oh, we're only doing this scene because it's exactly word for word what they said in Casablanca, or they're standing in the way that, and it's a callback to this, and that's why it's interesting to watch it, because you have that knowledge in film history. We need board games that are like that are only fun to play because you've played the older versions that they're homaging.
So, like, basically
it has to be super pretentious.
Super pretentious.
What was the so one of my favorite things about the movie Tropic Thunder was when they did like the trailers for the movie.
Yeah.
The Satan's Abbey one.
Yep.
like the Beijing Film Festival's coveted crying monkey, like Sundance, like something that's meant just for some super niche, like board game, like, and we don't even have that. We don't have a Sundance of board games yet. Like, I want an entire fucking board game convention that's dedicated to weird shit.
And I'm sure it exists somewhere.
I mean, if it does, I don't know about it.
I'm pretty sure it's called Essen.
No.
I take it back.
No. I mean, there's some that do get close, though. Not conventions, but games that do weird shit just to do weird shit.
Yeah.
If you want that, you should look into, like, almost everything that Hollandspiel puts out. Like, one of my favorite things about Tom from Hollandspiel is, like, he does games like, I don't know when you stopped listening to the podcast, Wes, since that was new information to me today. But way back when I was talking about 4X, like the back of the box 4X.
Oh, no, it's hilarious.
Don't buy this fucking game.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's broken.
That's why I like playing that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are games like that. And Hollandspiel's a designer that really does that. Winsomes are another games that sometimes do some weird things just to do weird things.
Well, and then there are definitely some very heavy war games and 18xx and things that you're like, if you like.
I sent you my buddy who's working on 18 Eberron.
Oh, that's right. 18 Eberron. That's one of those bullshit games that only exists to be bullshit.
Yeah. So I'll have to get you together with Sweater Mike and we'll play some 18 Eberron and just see what happens and how weird of an amalgamation it is to combine 18xx and D&D into a board game.
That will probably be terrible.
Probably. I mean, it's going to be one of those things that's only going to work for a very subset. It's going to work for a niche of a niche of a niche.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see how it plays out, but I feel like thematically it's only going to be a niche homage in the thematic sense. It's not going to be mechanically.
I mean, he's done some interesting things. I don't know shit about actual Eberron, really. So I don't know how much of like the weird mechanics of like a whole region blowing up mid-game like is actually true to Eberron. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that world as much.
Yeah. So let's move this whole conversation a little bit. And I know it's not going to be the most natural of transitions, but over to this, like,
speaking of natural transitions,
KonMari, by the way, is the method that Marie Kondo does, is the KonMari method. And minimalization and curating a collection and all of this, because that's kind of what all of this is going into, is like, I feel like, with Ignacy lamenting like one print era and like old games that are good aren't getting remade and people aren't playing the old games, and like Jamie of like, I can't keep up, like I can't make a new game fast enough to keep up with people who want the new game. And then as everything, because everything ties into politics, as much as people say keep politics out of things, politics plays into everything. The current political climate of the world, not just America, but like economically, like, I don't know if how much this applies to most of the rest of the Western developed world, but I know here in America, like, our generation is one of the first generations that stands to be less well off than our parents. Like the article from Angelus here, the third article that I didn't know if we'd get to and we're getting to now, he talks about like how hard it is for sometimes people in our generation to own their own home, to have space. Like a lot of them are living in apartments and moving every few years and having 1,000 board game collection and packing it up and moving it.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was easily one of the most daunting things for me moving into this house. I'd lived in that old apartment with Megan for 5 fucking years. I'd amassed almost 100 games. That's not even that many. Like I'd amassed about 100 games. It was a pain. It was a solid one entire trip of our like 5-trip move. 20% of our move was my board game collection.
That was the same for me when I moved.
Yeah.
I moved it over. It was in my Kia Soul. Now, to be fair, it wasn't completely packed because I was moving all this shit just by myself. But it was a good 4 to 5 trips from my old place to my new place of just board games.
Yeah.
So
like Jeff, who Wes is filling in for. Jeff still has a pallet of board games sitting in Paul's garage from his most recent.
And he still has a bunch of games in Chicago that he didn't even move
from Chicago there. Yeah. So what I want to talk about, and where I really want to transition this, like, and I might have to change the episode title because I was like, oh, we're going to talk about like board game publishing and distribution trends. And really what I want to talk about, and this is something that where all of this really struck a chord. And it was really Angelus's article that brought it all really home for me and really wanted me to do a podcast, made me want to do a podcast episode about it. The last like 6 months for me as a board gamer and as a podcaster about board games and a reviewer of board games and all of that has been especially like, I don't want to say rough, but strenuous a little bit. Like I've played a lot of games lately where I feel like, God, this is kind of fucking mediocre. Like, why am I doing this? Like, there's all these other great games I have sitting on my shelf that I don't fucking play that I would like to fucking play.
Oh, yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why am I pushing to do new things that I don't care about? And it's not even just like, some of it's the podcast. Like, there is an amount of like, I don't always get to play as much as we love Terraforming Mars. First mention, I think, of this episode. No,
we talked about it
for
a
Stephen
lot at the
Monacore way back.
beginning, yeah.
God damn it. Shit. As much as I love Terraforming Mars, and Terraforming Mars is an exception because it's so loved in our entire group. Fucking everyone loves it. It's a lot easier to get out. But even Terraforming Mars, like I went through a huge long stretch where I didn't play any Terraforming Mars. Like a game that I absolutely love. That's one of my top games. I never play enough Food Chain. Never. Like Food Chain is one of my favorite. Indonesia, another top 5 game for me. I never get to play it. And so reading all of this struck a spot with me, like, because then I think back to like reviews of some of the games, and I'm not gonna name games and like go back and trash old games. But there were some reviews that we did.
I mean, you already did it with Munchkin, but
well, Munchkin's different. I will always sort of trash Munchkin. I won't. Yeah. But there were games that I played where like I knew after like one play, it was like, fuck me, I'm not looking forward to this. And I know like we're very gamer backgrounds on here, Not Jeff can, be not Jeff.
Continue to be not Jeff.
Wes is a little different than Jeff.
Yeah.
Like Wes and I have a little bit more overlap in some areas than Jeff and I do. But like Zach, you and I, like there's starting to be less and less areas where we've really crystallized in our tastes over the few years in what we like and what we don't like. And so I know like, for you, there's been games I'm sure that we've reviewed or games that I want to review that I'm like, I want to review this. And you're like, fuck me. I don't want to review that.
I mean, I've straight up told you if you want to review 18X, be my guest, but I'm not going to be on that episode.
Yeah, I set out for Charterstone because I hadn't played it, not because I didn't want to. You'll sit out of 18XX because you don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more fair. I feel like it's more fair. I feel more justified in you doing that when 18XX is a 5-hour experience per game. Putting 15 hours into something like that sucks. Whereas sometimes I'm like, God, I don't want to play this game, but it only takes an hour. I can suck it up and play 4 games of it. But even then, it's like, I don't want to play it anymore. It's 4 hours of this game I don't like. I could play an 18XX. I could play Terraforming Mars.
But not until you finish your vegetables.
Yeah. And some of it isn't even so much of a like I don't like this genre or I don't like there are still games that come out that are in genres I don't like that are clearly not made for gamers like me that do neat things, that do interesting things, that have cool mechanics that I can get excited about, that I can talk about, and then at the end of the review be like, I actually didn't really like this game. I know it just in gameplay when I was raving about this cool mechanic, it might have sounded that way, but I actually didn't like this game. And vice versa. Like there's times when I'm like, this game didn't do anything interesting, but fuck me, I loved it. Like it kind of goes both ways. And I really hit that at the end of the year. And it kind of breeds in this idea of like an overconsumption. Like there's so many board games. You're constantly being bombarded. There's 5,000 new games in 2018. There will probably be 6,000, if not more, in 2019. And more and more and more and more. And you can't keep up. And so it gets hard to decide where you want to pursue that and where you don't. So Wes, I'm actually glad you're on this episode. And I'm going to punt the ball because I think I've talked for like 10 minutes straight now and nobody said anything.
It wouldn't be the first time.
It would not 100% be the first time. But Wes, because we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, like you don't get into the hype. You don't buy the new stuff.
Yeah.
You keep a very small collection.
And it's actually kind of, it kind of makes me sad sometimes looking at my collection at how big it's gotten. And it's still like 50 games. It's not like a big collection, but I'm like, gosh, I have so many games that I never play. And then I look at them all and they're all games that I bought 5-10 years ago that I don't like anymore.
Oh,
I mean,
not that I don't like anymore, but that I have played better versions of that I bought back when I was new in the hobby and was into the hype. And Dominion was the best thing ever, and I have 4 expansions of it. And when Catan was the best thing ever, and I have 4 expansions of it. And it's like I just never play those games anymore. And I've had that happen so many times where it's just bitten me in the ass, where I bought a game that I liked, played it to death, found something better, and I was like, shit, I'd spent all this time and money on that game. And
yeah, but it was the experience.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, I had tons of fun playing it at the time, but now it's just taking up shelf space.
Yeah, well, you could get rid of it.
I could get rid of it. But I actually, this week, because during my office move, I actually but was able to take from my office, because we didn't have anywhere for it in the new office, my first Kallax shelf. So I've instead of getting rid of games so that they all fit in the shelves that I have,
you have another shelf.
I have another shelf now.
I mean, I feel like everybody's done that at some point. You're
right.
like, it is not fitting my spot, so I just got to get more space.
Right.
Now it fits.
But I feel like I've been burned so much by games now that I really am careful with what I choose to buy.
Yeah. I went through a similar thing when we moved into this new house. Like I already talked about, like it was 20% of our moving my games over here. And before we'd even moved, we were already getting, I had 2 of the 2x5s, 2x4s, Kallaxes, and they were basically full. There was like a couple spaces that were used for other things, and then there were games like my game night bag always was just off to the side. Those were not on the shelf.
Yep.
There was a couple piled up on the shelf, and there were some like in the closet. And Megan was like, I think we need another Kallax. And then when we moved into this place, the way like the layout of the house is, 2 of them stand up real nice, and then we did the measurements. It was like, if we got a third one, it'd lay down, and they'd do this nice frame, and we could put a TV, and it'd be great. And we did that. And then like a month later, that Kallax was full. And Megan was like, we're going to need a 4th, aren't we? And part of me is like, yes, you just gave me approval. That was a rhetorical question. But then the other part of me hits that, and it's like, actually, I don't know. Like, we don't play that. We don't play that. We don't play that. Like,
right.
That was a gift from your dad. That was a gift from somebody else who, like, here's your into board games and gets you the Carcassonne big box that takes up a whole fucking section by itself. And we don't ever play Carcassonne. And we certainly don't play it with, like, 7 random expansions that they threw into big box number 4 or 5 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we have a whole section, a whole square of our Kallax is Catan stuff, because her dad found out she liked Catan and just every year bought her something new that was Catan branded. It's how Monopoly exists. That's why Richard has like 40 copies of Monopoly. Oh, there's a new Monopoly. You like Monopoly. You like board games. Here's a new Monopoly. No, I don't want it. Take it away. And so I think it's a fun trend. There was a tweet, and I hate that I missed the actual tweet when it came out, but Angelus did a screenshot. I can't even find the link to the actual tweet from Suzanne from Dice Tower, who is awesome. I've met her a couple times. I don't know how much she remembers me ever.
I'm sure she'll send us an email and let you know.
I guarantee that won't happen unless Ambi, who also might have a better connection to her through the Dice Tower, is like, hey, they were talking about you. And actually, now I don't even see it in this fucking article unless I just scroll. Yeah, I lost it. No, but she did it was a tweet, and it was the hobbyist's adventure, and it was discovery, and then interest, and then passion, and then collecting, and then oversaturation, and then despair, and then curating, and then balance. And it was and it was all emojis with those different things. And it was I like that.
Yeah, and maybe just
feels very zen.
Yeah, and maybe just since I've been playing board games since I was in high school, I've hit that balance point a lot earlier where
we did it in the past 6 years. So
right
here it is. I was looking on my computer, whereas on my phone, because of phone formatting, it shows up real big in the middle of the article. Now it's small and off to the side. Awareness, which is just a happy face. Interest, which is the monocle face. Affinity, hearts. Exploration, cool sunglasses. Consumption, overconsumption, saturation, fatigue, curation, balance. And it's a hobbyist's journey. And I feel I'm rapidly, I just at the end of 2018 kind of went through the saturation into fatigue.
I know for the longest time you wouldn't get rid of a game.
Yeah, I mean that was I had a hard time doing it. And this anniversary was the first anniversary for the game night where I donated my own personal games. And I donated 4 of them. Huge step for me.
Yeah.
They were all games I didn't care about anymore.
Yeah.
And even still looking up there, there's some I don't donate because they're Megan's. But I was even talking to her beforehand, and if she hadn't been so busy right around the anniversary, I probably would have talked her into donating another 5 games off that shelf. I feel for me, I've kind of come to a point where I'm going to try and limit my collection. I think 100 to 150. Once I'm over, I'm just barely over 100. So once I'm over 100, I'm going to look for games to be okay with getting rid of games. And then as I, buy new games and approach, if I ever hit 150, 150 is where I will hit the 1 in, 1 out. I will not buy a game until I move a game.
Yeah.
150, especially for me who like big, long, heavy games. And some of this I need to start differentiating a little bit between Megan's games and mine, because Megan is a little bit more omni-gamer than me. She can still really have some fun with games that I have thoroughly been done with for a while. But, and that's a huge blessing in disguise about my long period of near unemployment here, underemployment, is that I haven't had money for Kickstarters. We've come across a lot of Kickstarters where I'm like, ooh, that's shiny. I'd like to get that. And then I don't. And then a year later, I see that it released. And maybe some people play it, but maybe not. And I haven't had one yet in the last year and a half where I felt like I really missed out on a Kickstarter.
Which is why I never support Kickstarters.
Yeah.
They intentionally do that. They create the false sense of scarcity to make you want to have to buy now so that you don't miss out on the thing that's happening right now and you're getting the special exclusives but then in 6 months you're not playing it anyway, so what's the fucking point?
FOMO. What about you, Zach? Because what part of the reason, backstory for anybody who's not aware of starting the podcast, a huge part of the reason that you were the first person I really went to and was hey, you want to do a podcast with me, is because my first 3 years in the hobby, anytime that I had a question about Zach, what's the new game coming out?
Oh, yeah.
You were who I went to. You knew about the new Kickstarter. You'd get a game, you're oh yeah, this Kickstarter I backed last year. It's here, it's fresh, it's new, it's hot. So when I started thinking about doing a board game podcast, I was well, Zach always knows what the newest game is. I got to get him on. So what about you? How have you changed over the years? I remember for me, there was a point somewhere in the podcast, I think it might have been when we were starting, and I made the BGG guild because you can see badges.
Yeah.
And you and Jeff both for the longest time had the 100 badges collection.
Oh,
a
right.
100 game collection badge. I only just got that like 4 months ago when I finally re-updated my collection.
Well,
You've been there for a while, so
I mean, I've been there for a while, but I'm pretty sure that also includes expansions and Netrunner. So
I guess if you logged owning every single Netrunner,
but I stopped doing that years ago. I have not been shy. Like every time we do like we did the raffle, I'd always come to you with an armful
You've
of like
always been
10
like
to 15 games. I'm like,
one of our highest single donors.
That I'm completely fine with, even if I only play like, you know, when I buy the games, I value them on whatever experiences I get on it. I don't like I've never sold any of my games. If I'm done with them, then I just give them to somebody. But I don't like. I don't know. I've changed. I've backed less Kickstarters, but that's because I've had less money to do that.
Do you feel good about that? Do you feel bad? Like, do you wish you could have backed more?
I mean,
or is it like, so for me, because when I first was unemployed, there was a lot where I was like, fuck, I wish I had the money for this. And there's a couple that feel like I missed out on, but not many. Nothing that, and especially telling, nothing that comes to mind. Like, I can't think of something specifically. I feel like there were a couple where I was like, shit, I wish I could have.
No, there is nothing. I mean, there's nothing that I feel like I missed out on because, you know, it was like, oh, I see this thing that I can't have. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. But I also nothing that I've backed do I feel like I regret backing. Maybe, there's only one thing I regret backing, but that's the thing where I haven't gotten the game forever. It's been like a year and plus, so but luckily it was only like $17 or whatever.
What was it?
That Barry Harry Salon game thing about like grooming bears and lumberjacks.
Yeah.
Little party game sort of like filler sort of thing. So, but whatever. I don't know. I think I solidified my position pretty. I don't know more about a couple years ago, if not a little bit more on it. And so I don't know. Maybe I'll look at some of my games and be like, oh, I haven't played that for a while, but I'm okay. I honestly feel like every time I play a game, I'm gonna like it slightly less.
Interesting.
So
that actually doesn't surprise me at all, because one of the main complaints that I've heard about you with almost any like good Euro game is you're like, yeah, it was interesting, but then I kind of like salt it. Like I see what it does.
I'm that same way. Yeah.
See, whereas me, like I always like, I want to perfectly solve. Like, yeah, okay, I see the puzzle. I get what the puzzle is. Let me figure out how fast I can put that bitch together. Like, that's one of the things that's driven me in, like, the Resident Evil series last week. Like, I did a Leon play where I took my time. It took 8 hours. And then I was like, oh, to get the top rank, you need to finish in less than 3? You can do that? How's that puzzle work? How can you maximize your time? Where can you cut? Like, it took me 8 hours. How can I knock 5 hours off of a play?
Right.
And that's not even a gaming play. It's not like the Zelda run-throughs where they glitch through part of the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that kind of a speed run. It's like a design, like, you can beat the game in the normal game in that amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, and I get that way about, like, all games, like Food Chain. You know, like, that's why I like low randomness. There is a perfect solution to some of those. Some of them not, because other players can get...
Right,
like,
it's an inherently competitive, so it's less about playing the game better as it is playing your opponent better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just like, you know, there are I don't know, like some games I do really like the pure puzzle side, like multiplayer solitaire, where other people really can affect you. Like, can I do the puzzle better than you? Other ones like Food Chain, the way you do the puzzle will affect the way I do the puzzle.
Right, which is why I still find that game interesting.
Yeah. Whereas I know, Zach, for you, like, you kind of got like, I got all I can get out of this game.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, a lot of my enjoyment of games is learning new games and be like, okay, how does this all work together? Cool. That's how it works.
Right. Which is that I'm very much that way also, which is why I do not buy new games that are new. I play them once, twice, 3 times, solve it. And if I'm still interested in it after I've figured out the 80% of the majority of the game, and That's what the stupid little rule of thumb is. The first 80% takes 20% of the effort, and the last 20% takes 80% of the effort.
Yeah.
If I can't solve 80% of the game in 20% effort and still be having fun with it and want to put in the next 80% of effort to solve it the rest of the 20% of the way, then I'm not going to buy it. But I can't know that until I put in that first effort and play it 2 or 3 or 4 times. And once I know it has standing and it will last in my collection and I'll keep playing it, then I'll put up the money to buy it and put it in my collection.
You guys have much healthier relationships with buying board games than I do. I've just realized that.
No, I just have a whole lot of friends who have less healthy relationships with buying board games.
Paul has also been incredibly useful in me learning to moderate my board game
You're not
purchases.
wrong.
I would never buy. If I didn't know you guys, I would continue to not buy board games. I would also, though, continue to not play board games.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it's one nice thing about having more people is you don't have to buy as many of them.
Right.
Because there's someone out there who, I'm glad that I know someone who has Kingdom Death Monster, but I would never, even as much as how much
Christ, I know, right?
Even as much as I love the game now, I would never spend that much money on it. So
yeah, certainly not me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, completely aside from the fact that I don't have that kind of money to even consider spending it.
Exactly.
I don't think, even if I did, I
No.
would. My board game collection would probably be bigger if I had more money. There'd be more, because there are games that I still actively want that I just don't have the money to justify owning. But they're few and far between. Like, I own most of what I want to own that is reasonably affordable. Like, I don't own Hero Quest because, one, I know that as much as I enjoyed my one play of Hero Quest, it's another game that's like 20-some years old. D&D,
its age is going to show at some point.
D&D 5th edition does everything Hero Quest does just as well for way less money and in a more enjoyable manner. And I would only really have it for like a vague nostalgia factor that's even a fake nostalgia because I didn't play Hero Quest as a child. My first time playing Hero Quest was a game night at Wits End like 3 years ago. So I'm not going to spend...
And that's it.
I'm not going to spend $300... Yeah, I played it once. I'm not going to spend $300 to get a copy. Like, I don't care how cool of a YouTube video there is about some guy railing about why Hero Quest is the best.
But it's totally the best though, Adrian. Come on.
Yeah. I had an idea earlier of how I wanted to end this, like the final thoughts kind of part of this discussion. And then I had a half a bottle of wine. So to kind of bring it all home, let's kind of go around here and give like a final thoughts. Just one at a time, last little.
I know.
There was a heavy from you there, Zach. I saw it. I heard it.
It's all internal.
No, it was it was externally manifested in a variety of ways.
I don't know. I'm tired.
We broke Zach, guys.
Also I think it's just we've said everything we can for this level of discussion.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, final thoughts. I was like, I feel like we're just gonna say
final
the same
thoughts
things
were-
we've already
Well,
said.
that's what I was just trying to find something good to wrap it up, and I fell back on final thoughts from reviews, and that was a bad choice.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. I should have just been like, fuck it, we're done. Out.
I mean,
But final thoughts, I do not
not too late
recommend
to
this.
still do that.
Cost and availability on this discussion it is free and it is available.
No, the cost is however long this episode is. Your time you can never get that time back.
Time has value.
Yep.
Anyway, this episode is done. Hopefully you've enjoyed this discussion. I know some parts of it got rambly. That's how we do discussions around here. It's kind of free form. I don't want things to be scripted.
Then why did you email me this script?
This was the closest to scripted we've done, and it was still this rambly. I tried to have like a legitimate plan for this episode, trying to do more of that, like I'm a producer kind of nonsense. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hopefully there was some insight or something that you gained from it. If so, let us know. If not, also let us know. Like, I would like to know one way or the other whether this was something that was enjoyable or not. I never know with our discussions. They're like the most amorphous of the things we do on the show as to whether or not I think people like them or not. Sometimes they're like, I just want to ramble, so I'm going to do it, and people are going to listen or not. I don't care, but we'll see. If you want to let us know what you thought about this episode, good or bad, there are plenty of ways to do so. Fake Jeff, what's the first way to do so?
Emails. You can email us at emails@milehighgameguys.com.
You can also find us over on Twitter. I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG, and Jeff is Jeff_MHGG.
And I'm at Pathetic Lifeform, or you can also find me at MHGG_pod for the Mile High Dungeon Delvers podcast feed.
Indeed. We have a Board Game Geek guild number 2731, with episode posts. There's one specifically for this discussion. It had no comments. There's no listener feedback for this. There almost never is for our discussions, certainly not in advance. But let us know what you thought about the discussion over there on BGG. And while you're there, join the guild. Why not? It doesn't cost you anything if you're already on BGG.
Except your time.
It costs a click of the mouse. If you value the 10th of a second.
Well, and then all of the time that you spend on the thing.
Well, no, I'm saying if you're already there, if you're already going to the guild to give feedback on the episode, while you're there, just click join on the guild. Just a 10th of a second more than what you're already doing.
Well, and then you also have to count in how much the electricity costs. For that.
My God, Wes!
And
no.
the portion of your internet bill.
Yeah, and the fact that like you only have so many clicks until you get
carpal tunnel.
Carpal tunnel.
I have never ever
after 10,000 clicks, your finger falls off.
Fucking architects and accountants.
Mm-hmm.
What does architecture have to do with any of the bullshit I just spoused?
Or accounting?
People who do a lot of in-depth math.
I don't do any of that.
You definitely don't know anything about accounting or architecture. It involves in-depth math.
Yeah.
People who care way too much about numbers?
Nope.
No.
Still no.
Swing and a miss.
I think that's strike 3. Is what that is.
Well, on that note, we're out. We have a website, milehighgameguys.com, with show notes, including links to the 3 main articles we talked about for this episode, as well as a couple other ones that Zach found that we never really referenced, but are kind of tangentially related, that I'm just going to throw on there because fuck it, why not? They're on the Google Sheet, so they'll be there. Yeah, that's everything. I'm just going to close it out. We've been rambling. We've been drinking. Well, I've been drinking.
You're the only one that's been drinking.
I've been the only one drinking.
Yep.
God, you guys make me feel like an alcoholic.
You sure it's us that makes you feel that?
God damn it.
Maybe take your advice here. Just look within yourself.
Everything about tonight was a mistake.
he just exits out the recording.
That's the last line of the recording.
Yeah.
That's the last. Everything is a mistake. Click.
And thus ended the Mile High Game, guys. No, that is all. That's it. That's enough of our contact information. Check out the website for links to the show notes. As always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I continue to not be Jeff.
Thanks again for joining us, Wes.
Yes, thank you.
For this
As
bullshit
always.
discussion. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.